Right, so we're going to move on to getting friends of a user. All right, getting the friends list of a user basically. So how do we do that? Let me first of all demonstrate what I mean. So when I go into the user side, all right, we are getting an error. It says error undefined includes. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go up here and I'm going to bring this question mark here, and then that should fix it up, right? So yeah, so when I come here and I go to the friend side, I want to make sure that I am getting all these users friends, and then I'm able to log out, or sorry, I'm able to display the friends over here with the pictures and the username and everything, right? So how am I going to do that? um, let's first of all go to the profile. I think the right bar instead, right bar, and then okay, we already have these properties in there. So I'm basically going to clean. Okay, so I already have this one, right? So I'll just come and clean out these ones, these other ones. uh, Clean out these other ones, right? Let me clean this one. Okay, so my guess is it should just be left with this, right? So what will happen is, once we are done getting all the friends from the database, we should be able to populate it here, hence giving us our nice arrangements like we set up before. Okay, so in order for us to be able to start, let's go to the back end. I'm going to go to the user service. I'm going to go to the user service right now, and I'm quickly going to copy one of these. Okay, then I'm going to come here. I'm going to say get friends or get user friends, or just get friends in general, or user friends seems more specific. You get user friends, alright? Then this is basically going to take in, I think, params, because we take the ID. So params is going to take params, and then over here we are going to say that this user model we are going to find by ID. Okay, and then we're going to pass in what, the params.id. Okay, params.id. Okay, let's make a user ID. Right, now that we have this, what are we going to do? I'm going to come and say friends. I'm going to say friends, and I'm going to equate it to another await, and then we are going to use promise all, just like how we did inside the posts. If you remember, when we go into the post service and you come here, see how we did this promise all, we map through. That's how we are going to handle the user service. So I'm going to come and say promise all, coming, promise all. Then this, I'm going to quickly come down and say what, user dot what, following. We're going to look inside the user dot following array, and then we're going to map through, right? And then inside we are going to take the friend ID, right, or the ID of each and every single user inside this particular user's friends list, right? And then what we are quickly going to do is we're going to return user. I'm going to return the user model dot find by ID, and we are going to pass in the friend ID, right? Friend ID. Save that, it's here. Okay, so now that we've been able to set this up, let's now come right under this one. Okay, and let's create an empty array so that we can just push the needed materials that we need, because we do not want to get all the details of our friends, or we do not want to get all the details of each and every single person inside. We just want to get a few items or a few objects, right? So in order for us to do that, we are going to come down, and then I'll create the friends lists, our empty array, and then I'll later push the details we need, right? So make this empty, and then I'll come here and say what this friends list, right? This friends, right? The friends that we are getting here, we are going to map through. Okay, we're going to map through this friends array, right? Then what are we going to do next? Inside, we are going to say friend, each and every single friend that we are getting out of that array, right? We're going to do a few things, right? What is that? We're going to take each and every friend and push them. Okay, so basically this friend, right, we're going to take the items first. Okay, so let's take the ID, let's take the username, let's take the profile picture, then let us equate it to friend. Okay, now that we have that, we can come to the friends list, and then we push. Okay, we push the ID that we took, we push all this details. I'm just quickly going to copy this, put it here. Alright, so now that we have that all set up, what are we going to do? I'm finally going to return the friends list, right? Okay, so the friend list is going to be returned. If there's an error, we throw the error. Alright, now that we have set this up nicely, what you're going to do is I'm going to go into the user controller here. I'm going to go into the user controller here, then I'm quickly going to copy this, come here and paste. Now over here I can say get user friends controller, friends controller, then inside this one I can see what get user friends. Alright, then here we passing what request the params. Alright, then inside this one can remove this. Now what we get from this is going to be the friends, right? So we return the friends here. Okay, friends have been fetched successfully. Friends have been searched. Alright, I'm going to type this raw successfully. Alright, then I'm going to bring my comma because it's an object, and this one should also be fixed, right? So now that we've been able to set this up, let me check my mic. Okay, it still works. Now that we've been able to set this up, we can now use it inside our routes, right? So I'll quickly go into the user routes here, and then I would, what am I going to do? I'm going to take this get, right, and I'll use it here. So get friends, right, I'll paste it, then I'll say what friends user ID. Since you are getting that from the params, then I'll say what, get user friends controller. Right, now that we have this all set up, what are we going to do? I'm quickly going to move straight to the right bar here. And then we'll try to get it. Then right after we're able to get it, or we don't even have to, let me go to Postman and test it here first. Right, let's test it here. So over here, the user, I can add one more request. It says request not found. I can delete that. Can add a fresh new request. Add request. Okay, then it says what, get friends. It's going to be the name of the request, and then you have the base URL going to be users, and then friends, and then we are going to pass in the user ID of at least one user. Now, which user has a following? Yeah, I think I saw one, but I ignored. So it's going to be this one. This user has a following, so it's going to be Amma. I'm quickly going to take Amma's user ID, then I'll send it. So once I get, I should be able to receive the username, the ID, the username, and the profile picture. Okay, so now that I have this working for us, right, we know that it's working, so we want to move on to the front end and then implement it over here as well. Right, so in order for us to do it on the front end, we are going to have to get a use state for the friends. So we can say friends list, or we can just say friends and set friends, and then we can do this use state. Okay, then inside the use state, we are going to keep it as an empty array. Then over here we can do our use effect. Right, use effect. Then inside we have the function. Then our dependency is going to be what? Since it's the user ID that is going to be changing most of the time, or all the time, we are just going to set that to the dependency. Alright, good. So now that we have that, over here we can create a new function. I mean, we can't do the async thing here, right? Because use vect doesn't really take it, right? Or it's not ethical to use it that way, right? So what we are going to do is I'm going to have to create a new function inside, just like how we always do. I'm going to say get friends. Then I'm going to do it inside is going to be an asynchronous function. Then we have what, try catch in here. We have our try catch block. We can log out the error, and also we can do our toast the error, then we see what, something went wrong. Right, now that we have that, we can initialize it here. You can say get friends and then initialize it here, right? Alright, now that we have that, we can create a const response, right? Then inside we have our wait, but as usual, we do not write everything here, right? So what we are going to do is I'm going to go into the api.js here. Then we are going to copy one of these. Okay, copy this one. Then I'll come here and paste that. Then we'll say get user friends, right? Then over here we are going to say user ID as usual. Then here we are going to say what, friends, and then the user ID at the end, right? So now that we know this and we've been able to set this up, what can we do? I'll quickly close this and come back here. Then I'll say, well, get user friends, right? And then it has been imported. Then inside we are going to pass in the user.id, right? Now that we've been able to pass this in, we can set it to what? Friends. We can set it to friends as the rest.data.friends, because that's what we set it, that's how we set it inside the controller, if you remember, friends, right? Now that we have that working, we can even test to see if it is out here, right? So I'm going to log into the console, the rest.data. Okay, so how do we check this? So as you can see, this user has no friends, right? But we have the message showing here. So okay, I'm going to quickly go into someone that actually has friends, that is Amma. Then we should see that Amma's, okay, it says undefined. Okay, so here we have Amma's friends list here, which is what? The ID here as well and stuff. So now that we've seen that this friend is available, we can map through them and then display them over here, right? So let's quickly do that. Right, so as you can see here, there's this profile picture here, right? There's this profile picture here that it's like a dummy picture, right? But we want to be able to use the user's profile picture that we have. So we want to say check if the user.profile picture exists, right? Profile picture, check if it exists. If it exists, I need you to give me the user.profile picture. But if it doesn't, then you give me this one, right? And then obviously, okay, but we do not want it to show this, because if a user doesn't have a profile picture, I want it to show an empty profile, right? So let's set it up the right way. I would instead say profile. So over here I can see what, clean this and come to I think it was inside the profile page, profile, then assets, then we have user.png, right? So alright, we have this nicely set. Okay, right, now that we have this, for the meantime we can say that, okay, where is it? Right, now we have the friends list, we have the friends array, right? We've set it to it, so we are going to have to map through it to display the data here. Okay, so in order for us to be able to do that, over here we can say this, then I would say what, friends here, then I'll map through this friend, and I'll say what, friend, then inside, which is going to be a bracket, then I pass these ones into it, right? So alright, so over here I can say what, friend dot profile picture, friend dot profile picture, or else show this one. Then here I'm going to say what, friend dot what username. Okay, so once I do this, we should be able to see Kofi. But I'm looking at this picture and I'm not feeling satisfied about it, right? So I'm quickly going to get a much more straight picture or rectangular looking picture that we can use for a no profile, and then once I'm able to get that, we'll get back and then we'll replace it with it. Alright, so I've been able to get a no profile image here, and I'm quickly going to add it to it. So I got it from here, and so I would make sure that I add it to the assets in case I'm releasing the full video, right, of which is going to be very very soon. Okay, so I'm quickly going to add it. So I'm just going to switch up the path here. I'm going to clean this and say assets, then I'm going to say what, no profile image dot png. Okay, then over here it should quickly change and look nice, much better. Alright, okay, I'm glad we've been able to implement this functionality. Now the next thing that we'd want to move on to is following and unfollowing a user. Okay, but before that I want to make sure that unless I'm inside my own profile, or unless the profile here is the same as the logged in users profile, that's the only time that will show this upload components, right? So in order for us to do that, I'll quickly go back to VS Code and I'll go to, I think the feed. I'll go to the news feed here, and then over here I can say unless the username that we have taken from the params, unless it is equal to the current user, right, the current logged in user. Are we getting the current logged in user? No, I don't think we are. So in order for us to be able to get that, we're going to have to do const, then get that user here, and then we can remove this console log. Then we can get them from the use context, then the auth context as well, auth context, then what else? So over here say user dot what username, right? If the username inside the params here is the same as the current logged in user's username, then we want to render this. We want to quickly render these bad boys. I'll cut this, and then over here I'll bring in my brackets and my empty fragments, and then I'll pass in these bad boys. Okay, so now that I have this all set up, I'm coming. I'm going to take these ones out and place them here. Then these ones I can even cut them, right? Then it should be just this one. Okay, so I can quickly go back to the home page. Okay, expecting the home page to load up. It says what? Cannot read property ID, and that is in the right bar. Cannot read property ID, that is in the right bar. ID. Okay, cannot read property ID. So we just add this question mark, and then we try. Still can't read a property ID. Okay, that is strange. I would add this to it. And then where else do we have user.id? I'm going to find it. User.id. Wait, these users, okay, we're getting them from a different place. Then which one? I'm going to quickly user.id. Okay, so it's here. So basically all we had to do was add the question marks. Now what do the question marks say? The question marks say that check if it's available. If it is available, put in the ID. If it's not, just leave it and allow everything to happen. And that's what we simply did for this place as well, and then it's now working. Okay, so if I refresh, you should see that it should work as we expected to. See, something went wrong. Okay, yes, that's because it's not necessarily our friend's side. So what I can do is I can basically just take this one out. I can just take this one out so that it doesn't keep giving us that error. Okay, alright, so we are not inside the profile in order for us to display the friends, right? But the moment we go inside, you can see that Henry is the logged in user and it's the same username over here in the params. That's why we are seeing this. But if I click and go to Amma or even Kofi, when I go to Kofi right now, we are not going to see the same thing, right? So you realize we are not going to see that. When I go to Amma too, we are not going to see the same thing, basically, right? So I'm just wondering a little bit why this one seems empty. Okay, so I'm going to go to my VS Code and then I would quickly log out. So inside the newsfeed, I'm quickly going to log out the posts to see. Okay, so we have okay, so basically the reason why it's appearing like this is because Amma doesn't have any boost, right? But the moment we go to Henry, we do realize that Henry has posts, right? So it shows, and since Henry is the current logged in user, we are seeing this. So when we go to the home page, we realize that this side is also gone. Okay, and so yeah, that is it. Now let's immediately create our follow button. So quickly go to Amma's profile. I don't want it to be my profile because it can't be there, I can't follow myself basically. So I'll go to Amma's profile real quick. So now that I'm in Amma's profile, I want to add a follow button here, alright, so that me and Henry can follow Amma when I'm here, right? So in order for me to be able to do that, I'll go to the right bar, okay, and then over here I would say const sorry so this is the white bar profile, right? I'll come here. It's already in an empty fragment, so I can do it here, right? So here I would want to say that I want to check if the user the username is not the same. I want to check if this the username is not the same as the current user dot username, right? So I'm trying to say that I want to check if it's the current user page. So I'm saying that if this user that I'm on his page, right, if his username is not equal to me that I'm logged in my username, then I need you to display, or I need you to render this, right? So what do I need you to render? I basically need you to render a button. Alright, cool. So now that I know this, I can quickly come here and basically call, I can come here and call the sorry, not this place exactly, but basically the top, just the top here. I can come here and call that my current user. So I would say here user, call the user and give it a nickname, or another way it can be recognized as what the current user. Then I'll take it from the use context here. Then this use context, I'm going to pass with my auth context. Alright, so now that I have this, I can go here. Okay, so here I can say follow. Then I think I can give my plus, right? So over here that I have follow, I can even make it just follow like this. Then I can give it a class name, of bg green 500, bg green 500. Let's make it 600 so it matches. Bg green 600. Then text white, give it a margin top of 5 or 10. Let's give it a margin top of 10, MB of 10, right? Okay, let's give it 5. I don't want it to be too separated, right? And then what else? We want to make sure it has a padding. So right padding, I want to say that horizontal padding, right? So I'll say I want to see the, so yeah, px, yeah, so px is going to be 2.5. no, py, I want py to be 2.5. then I'll make px 5. Then let's look at it. Alright, cool. Px, let's make that 2.5 as well and see how it will look like. Okay, so let's make this 5 and make this, okay, and make this 1, 2. Right, I think I like this one. Then I'm quickly going to give it a rounded MD. Alright, and I'm quickly going to give it a cursor pointer, and I'm going to say whenever I hover, I want to say that the green color, so I want to say BG green 700, the green color deepens, and I want to add my transition as well so that everything is smooth. Alright, so on this page, when I refresh, and then I move my mouse over like this. Okay, this one is also saying what each child in the lists. Okay, right bar. Okay, I think I know where it is. Quickly going to come here. I think it should be here, the friend side. So over here I can just pass in my key. And say it's what friend dot id. Now it's gone. Okay, then over here, what I'm going to do about the follow button right now is, looking at the way when you hover over it, it doesn't do anything. I'm probably thinking there's something over it, like there's something on top of it, right? So I'm going to go down here, and this Z index, I'm quickly going to remove this, then come back, and then yes, it should be good and working just as we expect it to, right? So we can now work on the functionalities. Let's do that real quick. Alright, so we quickly want to be able to use our follow button. So what we want to do is, I'll come here and give it an on click, and then when I click on it, I want to handle follow. Okay, so how am I going to handle the follow? It's going to be a function that I'll create up here. Alright, so down here, right under here, I'm going to come and say const handle follow. I think I copied it, so I'll just paste that. Const handle follow, which is going to be an asynchronous function. Then create the function. Alright, then try catch. See what we can log out the error. Right, okay, so now that we have this, let's set up the check for whether the current user that I'm logged in, is following this user on their profile, right? So how do I check that? I'm quickly going to use a use effect, right? But let's set up a use state first to check, to do the check or store the value, right? So I'm going to say is followed, set is followed, right? Set is followed. Get my charger. Then I would equate it to use state here. Alright, then inside the use state, I can set the default value to be false. Okay, I can quickly set the default value to be false. Right, then I can come down here and use the use effect. Okay, then inside, let me check the network is off. Alright, so here I can add it. Right, so over here, what would I say? I would say that is followed, right? We want to set is followed to what? We want to say that look inside the current user's followings, right? So current user dot followings array, right? Now if inside that following, if it includes what if it includes the user ID, that's going to be the current that particular user we are inside his or her profile. So we want to look inside that. So I want to say yes, ID, yeah. So look inside, right? If it's in there, if that user profile's ID is inside our current users following array, it will give us true, but if it's not, it will give us false, right? And then with that, we'll be able to manipulate this by saying that, by putting this inside here, and then we can say we can basically, let me clean this and say is followed. If is followed is true, then I need you to give me following, right? But if it's false, I need you to give me follow, right? Yeah, alright. So now that we've been able to set this up, we are good to go by writing our functionality for that. Alright, so we want to write the functionality like I said, but before we do that, let us go to the use effect here and make sure we are passing in our dependencies. So current user and then a user dot what ID. Okay, so now that we know this, okay, we want to I want to come down. Okay, so this one is actually correct. Okay, follow this true. Okay, it's correct. So what we want to do is we want to now write the functionality, right? So over here inside the handle follow here, we can do a few things. Now first of all, we want to make sure that whenever we click on this follow, it basically changes to the following and it comes back, right? So in order for us to be able to accomplish that, we set this as followed to be the negation of it, right? So to the negation of its truth value, right? So it's followed here. So you realize that when I click, you realize it keeps changing, right? So that's awesome. Now how do we perform the functionalities in between here? So we want to first of all check, right? We want to say if, let me write our if statement snippets. So if else, yeah, so what's the condition here? We want to check is following, right? We want to check that it's following array. Now if it's true, we want it to await a few things, right? What are we trying to await? I want to now create that functionality for it inside our API. So I'll go to the API here, then we can quickly copy this and paste it here, right? Now we can say follow, or I think if the follow is true, let me go back to the right bar. Okay, it's not okay. Yeah, this is it. Now if it's followed is true, that means you're already following, right? So let's work on follow first. So for that, because of that, I'm going to say what unfollow friend or unfollow user basically. Then when we look inside the backend, that is this part, the service, you realize that it takes in the user data, and then that user data is going to be the body, and then this one is going to be the params, because when we check here, you see user data is the first parameter, which is request the body, and then request the params is the second. So when we check again here, you can see here user.data first parameter, update data is second, right? So body and params. So for the params, we pass in the normal ID, and the body we pass in the user data. So here I'm going to say what user ID and then the ID, right? So over here we pass in the ID, and then we give it a body object of what user ID, and then we pass in user ID parameter as well, okay, for it to fill in that space. All right, then over here we set this to unfollow, right? That's because when we go back to the route here and we check, you see unfollow. When we go inside, you see here it also takes the same properties as well. So as you can see, it's here, right? So I can go back to the api.js here, and then we've been able to set this up. We change this to put, okay, change this to put, then I think we should be good to go. So what I can do is I can basically go back to the right bar here. So I wait. Now wait what? Unfollow user. So unfollow user has to be imported here. It's here. Then I'm going to pass in my user ID, which is what the current user that we need. Current user .id that we need, and then the ID itself is going to be that user that I'm on his profile or her profile and I'm trying to follow. So user dot what, user dot id as well. Okay, so now that I have this working, I want to do the same thing for this one as well. So I'm just going to copy and paste. I'm going to change this to follow user, and then I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here and do the same thing, and then change this to follow. Okay, then I'm going to change this one to follow. Okay, then I'm going to come back. Where is it? I'm going to go back to the right bar as well, and then import it. Okay, now it should be imported here, follow user. Okay, now that it's here, we can now use it, right? But mind you, we want to be able to make sure that at the end of the day, when we update something inside the server, we are also updating it inside our user state in our application. Because when we go back here, when we go back to the auth context to check, you can see that there's no following array. There's no following array. So whenever we perform that action, it would actually go back, right? It will rather go back and do whatever we wanted to do inside the database, but it wouldn't do it inside our current user state that is inside the application, right? So because of that, we want to go into the actions, and then we want to make a few changes, right? So let's quickly work on the unfollow and then follow, right? So for that, I can basically copy this and then come here and paste. Then I'll say what? I'll say, oh, let's do follow. Okay, so follow, then I'll say user ID, right? Then inside, I'll make this follow. Okay, then over here, I'll pass the payload to be what? User ID, right? Payload will be user ID. Then I can do the same thing for this one, for the unfollow. So over here, I can say what? Unfollow. So follow, and then unfollow, right? So I can do the same thing, unfollow, right? So now that I have this working, we want to go straight into the reducer so we can implement what we want to implement, right? So over here, you already have this. I would copy this case and I'll bring it down here, and over here I'm going to set this case to what? Follow. Okay, I'm going to set this case to follow, and then I'm going to quickly clean this up, right? Now that we have the case for the action, right, to perform whatever we want to perform, right, or to update a state, we want to say that, right, in case we pass in the dispatch type to be follow, right, what do we want to do? We want to first of all take everything inside our initial state, right, or the state of our current user. Take everything inside. Now that you have everything inside, we want to go to the user object and then change its value as well, right? So inside the user object, what value are we trying to change? We want to change the followings, right? But wait, before you change the followings, let's take everything inside the state, or let's take everything inside the user object inside your state, right? Then after you've taken it, now let's go into the followings. Okay, followings, right? Then inside this following, that is an array, you want to make sure that we are taking everything inside the what? The state dot user dot followings, right? We're taking everything inside, that array, and then we are passing in what the action dot what payload, right? So basically, after setting this up, right, we want to copy this case, right? We want to copy it and just manipulate it a little bit for the onfollow, right? So in case we say that the dispatch type is onfollow, what do we want to do? What do we want to do? We want to go here as usual, go there, then inside this followings, right? This is where things are going to change a bit. Now over here we are passing in a new user ID, right? So we can just pass it in straight. But for the followings, we are trying to remove a user ID. So if I say age, right, I do whatever, I do this inside, right? And I use the follow. That means I'm adding some more things to it. But what we want to do for the onfollow is we want to write a functionality that will be able to check. We want to check. Then once we onfollow, we check the ID, right, to see if it matches the ones inside. Now if we check and then the value we are passing through matches the one that is already in the followers array, we just remove it, right? So in order for us to do that, we use the filter method. Okay, so how do we use the filter method? I'm going to go back to the reducer here, and then I'll pass in the state. Dot user dot followings dot filter, then I'll say what followings, right? Then I'll say following, then inside. So look inside and compare a few things for me, right? Now when you look inside, check if the following, right, that is the ID that we are looking for. Check if it is not equal to what the action dot payload, right? So the moment you realize it is not part of it, just take action, take it out. Okay, it looks like set equal to, yeah. Now the moment you realize it's not part of it, you take action. Okay, so after everything, you can now return the state. Okay, so now that we have this set up nicely, we want to go back into our, where is it? I want to go back into the right bar. Is it right bar? Yeah. I want to go back into the right bar, and then we want to now make our difference or our changes, right? So over here, I will come down and dispatch, right? I will now dispatch. But where are we getting the dispatch from? We are going to get it from here. Okay, dispatch. Okay, we're getting it from here. So let's dispatch the type, and then we pass in what onfollow. First we pass in onfollow. Okay, then after passing in the type, we forgot to put it inside there. So after passing in the type of onfollow, then we say what? We say that the payload that we are looking for should be the user dot what ID. Alright, now we are basically going to do the same thing for the one under here, and then we will change this to what? Follow. Alright, then now that we've been able to do this, we want to check a few things here. Now over here, you can see that we are now handling things with our real, or we are now handling things with a user that is inside our state, that is inside our system, right? So instead of setting this place to be false, we should rather pass in this, so that it checks for what, so that whenever we use this thing, that is the opposite. So you see that, you see this part is going to give us a truth or false value, right? So instead of passing in a value that we have self-determined, why don't we pass in the value that we have determined once the page has refreshed, right? So passing in this value is basically going to check for the original thing we are looking for when the page refreshes. Then after it has checked, we can now use that to make our own decisions inside the application, right? So now that we know this, I'm going to save that, and then we'll try it ourselves. We'll try it out here. So I'm quickly going to refresh. Okay, so it's here. Then I would follow. Okay, you can see here that it says what, following, right? If I go back, if I go into the database and I go and check here, if I check, now you can see that Ames followers array has B9, and that is Henry, right? And Henry is following Amma here, and as you can see, it has affected the current user, right? So it works. Okay, so we are going to have to find a way of storing the state so that it becomes persistent, okay? So that whenever I refresh the page, this one doesn't leave. So we are going to handle that as we move on, right? So let's, if we want to test it again, I can clean this. I can clean this up real quick. Clean this up real quick, and clean this up as well. Clean this up as well. So when we follow, it passes it in, then it's stored inside the database. Okay, so followers. Okay, then we have to remove this. Right, it stores it in, and then over here you can see Ames on here as well. Okay, so that is interesting, that is nice and interesting. I want to quickly go into the home page. So okay, it says cannot read the properties of, okay, it says right bar. Okay, so I'm going to go to VS Code and go to the right bar here, and then it says cannot read properties of ID. Okay, I will just leave it at user so that it ignores it, right? And then we should have our home page. Okay, it says what, cannot read properties of ID at the right bar. It says 20. Okay. So we can leave this, and we can come here and then place our question mark. Okay, I didn't look at it well. So right now we have this, but as you can see, this component, the upload component is not here. So what we can do is I can go to the news feed here, and basically this side I can say if there is no username, or the username matches the current user username, then show us the upload post. Then we make sure that we keep this inside the parentheses. Okay, then I put this also inside the parentheses as well. Then we go and check. Now you can see that it's here. We can now do our uploads, where you can now upload our images and everything and make our posts. Then over here I want to make sure that when I click this side, I can go into my profile. So in order for me to be able to do that, I would go into the nav bar here, and then I would come and say link, right? So for this link, I'll close it up, and then I would bring it down here. I need to make sure that I have imported this link. Okay, it's already imported. Then I pass in the to prop. I'll pass in the to prop of profile, come on, profile, and then the $sign, then with the what, the user dot username, right? Okay, so now that I have that set up, when I go back to the browser and then I select this, I should go to my profile. Alright, so my profile is here and it should be loaded up. In no time. Let me refresh the server. The network might be bugging. I need to refresh the server. Let me close all of these things. I want to close everything here. Right, and then let me open the nav bar as I wanted. Nav bar, right, and let me check here. Okay, so the network as usual. I'm gonna go to the server and save so that it restarts it. Then I can go back to the page and refresh. Okay, so I'm refreshing the page. Right, looks like the network is still messed up. I'm going to fix the network, and then when I get back we should see the user information here. It has loaded up and you can see that Amma here is my friend, right? It has shown here. Thank you very much for getting to this part. In the next one, we are going to learn how to update our profile and also how to update our cover photo, right? Thank you very much. See you then. Bye.